Welcome to lecture 18. We're going to talk about network address translation and IP version 6. So let's start off by talking about IP version 6. So why do we need IP version 6? So we had IP version 4, and these addresses looked like this, 192.182.1.1. And this was actually a representation of 32 bits. And these 32 bits uniquely identified some machine on the network. What happened was that we ran out of IP addresses. There were more machines than IP addresses. So in order to express or to represent more machines, it was proposed that we increase the number of bits from 32 to 128. So 6 uses 128 bits as the IP address. You'll normally see numbers represented in this form, where regions are separated by colons. That's a good way to tell if you have an IPv6 address. Let's talk about network address translation. Before we had IPv6, there was this issue of we have a lot of devices and very few IP addresses. So your home router actually is assigned a single IP address. So let's say 172.168.2.1.1. And it has to share that with all of the other machines, maybe your phone here, maybe your laptop, maybe a desktop here. Like all of them have to share that single IP address. How do we do that? We implement a network address translation table, or NAT. So remember that if you had multiple things running on your phone, maybe the browser, and then an app, the way that your operating system decides where the packet goes is it has a port number associated with each of these. There's a unique port number associated with each of these. And so both of these applications here share an IP address, and then they're differentiated based on their port number. What NAT does is says, okay, we'll treat the entire network as being multiple processes running on this router. Each process on the device will get a port mapping in the NAT table. So here's our network address translation table. Let's say we have our phone over here running a browser on 8080. So this is the phone. And then we have a desktop running some game on, so this is our game with G, on 6242. And the phone's IP address is 10.0.0.1, and the desktop's IP address is 10.0.0.2. So these are private IP addresses and are reserved for NATs. So you might have wondered, how come all our Kali machines have the same IP address, 100? That's because these aren't public-facing IPs, they're private IPs, and they're assigned by the DHCP server in pfSense, and they follow this NAT principle as well. So if your phone's browser wants to communicate with Google, the packet it sends needs a source IP address and a source port. We only have one external facing IP address, and it's something like 172.168.2.1, for example. So this network address translation table is going to translate this value, 10.0.1, and its associated port for the browser, in this case 8080, into something that can be sent on the external facing IP. And so what we'll have here is we'll have IP and port entries. And so we'll have an IP address of 10.0.0.1 and a port of 8080. And then here, the network address translation table will map it to its own port. So we'll say this will represent by port 5555. So when a packet leaves here, it's going to leave on 172.168.1.2.1. That's going to be the source IP address, and the source port is going to get changed to 5555. So when this browser packet flows through the table has an entry that says, okay, 10.0.1 and 8080 is going to get translated to 55. And so when it leaves, it gets translated through this table and exits the network as 172.168.1 and port 55. And so for this desktop game, it's on 10.0.0.2, the second machine, and port 6242. When it exits the network, it's going to leave on 172.168.2.1, and the port number is going to be assigned by the NAT. So we'll say, okay, 555 is already taken, so we'll do 677. 6677. And let's clean this up here now. So what happens in the case when we get a packet response? So Google has some packet that comes in, says it's for one destination port is 172.168.2.1. That's the same address. And destination port is 55555. The table does the same translation. It says, oh, port 555, that's for 10.0.0.1 on 8080, and that will send it out here, up here. If we get another packet coming in, 172.168.2.1 on port 6677, that's going to go through here, and now it's going to be for 10.0.0.2 and 2.42, and get forwarded to the second desktop. So that's the basic idea of network address translation. Good way of reusing a single IP address for multiple machines on a network by having these private LAN addresses here. It's the same thing that the pfSense machine does. It takes one IP address that it gets from the bridge adapter on your network and shares that across all of the devices in our private virtual network. Okay, that's it for this lecture. Good luck with the homework. And as always, I'm on Discord and answering questions. Bye.
Great. So if you're enjoying these lectures, feel free to check out the full lecture series on Udemy. The link for that full lecture series is in the description below. Thanks.